nothing killed tyres quicker than the Bugatti. We did a set of tyres and a tank of fuel. It was either 3 or 4 laps. Well, the coolest part of my role as the Stig on Top Gear was driving fast cars as fast as they would humanly go. It was effectively, that was the main job. I used to love seeing the footage. At the time, we go and shoot this stuff. I never knew what it looked like. Main focus for me was to get in a very short space of time, very familiar, very fast with these different cars, because you didn't have very long. Firstly, you didn't have all day to shoot them because we had the crew for about 45 minutes to go and pick all this stuff up, and actually the tyres wouldn't take it. On a lighter car, maybe you had 8 laps, 9 laps, something like that before the tyres were dead. And so you did have to get to know the car, find out all its foibles very early on, and then, so I would do that by attacking pretty hard, pretty fast, and I've always had an intuitive feeling for how much grip a car has. So I'd go at it pretty hard, make a load of mistakes, slip wide, do this, do that, listen to the camera guys grumble because it looked untidy and they wanted clean runs and all that. But that was really the only way to find the limit quickly, and then bring it back and just tidy up and try and get the most clinically perfect lap I could possibly get. And from my perspective, every manufacturer that came to us, I felt they're trusting you to do your best and to get the best for them out of that car. So I really felt that duty, and there was something cool wearing the suit and helmet. You did feel you were taking on the character of the Stig. The character was perfect. It's like a machine, able to deliver the perfect lap, the very best a racing driver could be. You felt an energy of that aspiration. Whenever you put the suit on, you did feel a bit different to just wearing a normal helmet, and that, the responsibility of what you're carrying. So I would push incredibly hard, sometimes, a bit too hard. And I always remember Ferrari, so love it when they would come to the track. They were so passionate, enthusiastic. They'd come with a team of sort of 10 people, really wanting to hear what you thought of the car. How could they help? And really, the only thing you could do to help is put fuel in it and adjust the tyre pressures. But they were really keen, and I was pushing hard. We had a new model that was before the 458, so it must have been the 430. The car wasn't producing the times that we expected. There was a slight crosswind that was blowing me off through the follow-through. And then occasionally you get Willman would come down, my boss, and add pressure to a situation and say, why isn't it fast enough? Sort of looking sort of slightly judgmentally at me. Of course, you do then think, have I lost it? I've forgotten how to turn a lap time. What am I doing wrong? Am I doing something wrong with the brakes? Am I overdriving the car, doing something wrong? So I started pushing again through the follow-through, and I tried to go too quick, and I slid into the tyre wall, clipped it basically with a thump. Horrible feeling. You take a brand new car. I mean, Whistling Diesel doesn't have a problem with damaging stuff. For me, it goes against the grain. And I knew I'd trashed the side of the car. I just couldn't imagine what it looked like, but I thought the least I can do is finish this lap, because it was the quickest lap I'd done. Crossed the line, brought it back to the Ferrari guys, and they were I said, I'm so sorry, I've scratched the car. They're like, don't worry, Maranello, we have many cars. We damage many cars. It's okay. You're pushing. And anyway, they explained that we were on a different tyre compound to their normal tyre supplier, and that it would be about a second slower than what we expected. So fortunately, communication did start flowing, and kind of understood why we were off the pace with that car. But I remember we had the convertible and the coupe. The convertible you normally expect to be a lot slower, and people say, oh, delete the sunroof and all that stuff. Actually, on the Ferrari back then, it was only worth 0.15 of a second, so 1.5 tenths is not a lot. And you get a suntan and you look cool. Koenigsegg is, rightly, wrongly, it sort of was one of the most watched videos because I crashed the car. But at the time, they'd just done the land speed record. They were all about straight line power. They trimmed all the downforce out of it because they wanted to go fast and straight. And it's the opposite of what you want at the Top Gear track. You want the downforce, you need the grip. The ride height was a bit high. The brake pedal was a bit spongy, and I was having to pump the brake. And the power steering was having some issues because it was a prototype, so you got to forgive that. But it did mean that occasionally, when I was trying to, and I tell you that driving that Koenigsegg was a feral fight, pushing it that hard, no traction control, manual shift. It was a big old soup spoon to get between the gears, and if you messed that up, you'd lose the whole lap. And second to third, when you were sliding, so one hand sort of trying to control the steering wheel, you'd be thrown around in the seat, and then trying to get second out into third smoothly, and get it wrong, you lose, slightly wrong, you're going to lose 2 tenths, you're going to waste that lap. Miss the gear, then the lap, you have to start again. So that's all going on. And with the steering business, it was getting to a point, so I'd actually sort of relayed through the producers this car has got a few faults. It's experimental, but I didn't want to pull it because this was their shot. So I was giving it everything, and then through the follow through, went slightly too quick and lost the tail. But I felt I could have just carried a bit more speed, just lost the tail slightly. As I went to counter steer it, the power steering fault returned, and I couldn't steer it anymore. It went so heavy, and off I went. I found the only tyre wall in the entire field. The car ploughed through it. It was so embarrassing, and damaged the car. I felt really bad. Christian von Koenigsegg came out. He looked really upset. It was, it's his car, it's his company, reputation, all this stuff. It was a really low point, but actually the most fun, probably the most engaging and visceral drive I can remember, because it was such a battle. I gave them some feedback, and they lowered the car. They put a wing on it. They sorted the faults out because that was not a big deal to do. Brought the thing back, and it was about 3.5 seconds quicker, which is roughly what I'd anticipated. Put a tidy lap together, and away it went. In sort of track mode, the CCX was really, really fun to drive. And I love seeing now what they've done. I mean, the new Koenigsegg, where they've kind of reinvented the CCX body style, shape and chassis with that this sort of fantastic automatic manual. I don't even know what you call it. I love that. It's watching that company, it's hard to believe that's 20 years on from when I was driving. I think I drove it in 2004 or something. To see that company has grown from, a really niche, cool company with the vision of a Christian, and he's taken it into a place that I would never have imagined, because no one had heard of Koenigsegg, no one could spell it back in the day, and now it's kind of like a cult status. So the competition for those times was really fierce. Manufacturers took it pretty seriously. They were being judged on it, and we did get some wild and wonderful cars. So the fastest car I think I drove was the Caparo, which was kind of like an Indy car. I think it did a 10.6, 1 minute 10.6, I think it was. And the current record, I think, is a 12.3, which is the Ferrari SF90. So things have evolved. The quickest I drove around there was the Caparo, but that was disallowed because they said it wouldn't go over a speed bump, which I think is a little harsh. The quickest qualifying car I drove was the Bugatti Veyron Supersport, which was interesting because it had just enough power to break the tail, but only just. So 1,200 brake horsepower, capable of 267 miles an hour. In terms of tyre killing, nothing killed tyres quicker than the Bugatti. We did a set of tyres and a tank of fuel. It was either 3 or 4 laps. Apparently, they think the tyres were cheaper, $40,000 a set. So next tyres went back on. I think it did a total of 7 or 8 laps. Dragged these tyres around. You could literally, any time that there was any force going through the car, it just left black marks on the track. So it looked like a giant had been there with a crayon and just drawn all over the track. And that was phenomenally quick, but it is a heavy car, not as agile as something like a 458. Driving a 458, pushing it is a utterly fantastic experience. You're in the middle of everything. The weight is all around you. It's perfectly spread. It's a lightweight car, linear power, no turbo. Bugatti, big heavy car, loads of power, but faster. It's interesting that Ferrari have got that fastest lap with the SF90, but it's quite a heavy car with lots of power. So it's going to be interesting. Now I've been racing for Praga for the last 2 years, and they've just developed this hypercar called the Bohema. Totally different philosophy, which is less power, less weight, tight package, carbon monocoque, so similar chassis to a Formula One car or a Le Mans car. And we've been to Dunsfold. I'm pretty certain that if we put new tyres on that car and went back to attack, we could break the record with that car. So that is something I'm definitely keen to do. Visually, the Bohema, it's got a very unique shape and style, but you can see the DNA marries up with the R1 that I've been racing for the last 2 years. It's got a distinctive sort of face. It's a completely ground up design that's bespoke. I think it's roughly going to be 800 horsepower, the final model. It's a downforce car, so it's got tunnels, it's got really complex aerodynamic system, but the thing I enjoy most about it is you can wring its neck lap after lap, just fill it with fuel and just keep driving. And because it's lightweight, it doesn't kill the tyres so quickly. So you can string together 10 consecutive laps, the brakes don't overheat, the tyres don't die and melt. It feels almost like you're driving a Le Mans car that's road ready. The SLR was the one car that I didn't drive for the power lap because I think they insisted that their test driver take that one round. So I watched from the sidelines quite jealously, but I did get to drive it on track afterwards and get a bit of a feeling for it. It's great, super powerful. You've always got your work set out for you with the front engine rear-wheel drive car because you've got a potentially big heavy weight in the front, SLR and a massive engine, and it was quite skittish at the rear. I think the thing I found most challenging with it was the brake pedal. It was quite wooden, and to be really sensitive and to be able to sort of trail brake and sort of really pick your moment when you're going to brake right on the limit. that brake pedal was it just felt quite solid. I never really felt like I was in control of it exactly. I felt a little bit detached. Actually, weirdly, most recently when I felt like that was actually in the new Honda NSX. So I was so excited for that car. But I loved the original. The original was just, drove that again recently, and it's still wonderful to drive. You've got to really rev it and drive it hard to unleash the full potential. But the hybrid car had even much more of a sort of fly-by-wire pedal. McLaren, the SLR, okay, had a servo, but you were in control of the servo. With NSX, it was totally fly-by-wire. You felt that you were talking to a robot. Your foot had no real control over your deceleration, and it was like pushing on a sponge. You never really knew how quickly it would slow down. And that equated to the throttle, because the hybrid power was changing lap by lap. I noticed you were just losing throttle. So you knew coming out of a hairpin or a medium speed corner with this much power, it's going to do this with the chassis, it's going to make it squat. I'm going to have to control the steering. But you never could do that because the throttle was never the same 2 corners in a row. To really be engaged and enjoy driving, you need to be driving it. So this is the thing, the sort of steps towards driverless cars and things like that. Sure, sitting on a train is also nice. You can read a book. When it gets to that stage, I'll be happy. But everything in between, where the car is twitching the steering wheel or beeping at you or interfering with the braking, that can all go and fish.
Whether you see the car in person or buy it sight unseen, when you buy a pre-owned car, you need to get an inspection done by a qualified professional. And the nationwide network of trained inspectors from the Lemon Squad is the best way to accomplish that. They give you a great deal and a great bit of information about any car you're looking at very quickly. They've been supporting VINwiki now for 2 years, and I use them personally because when I'm buying a car, I need to know the full story. So check them out now at the link in the description below and use the code VINwiki for 10% off, and never buy a used car without the Lemon Squad.